Hello and welcome to another edition of Wi-Fi Friends with Cam and John. And this episode is not like the usual episode. John, tell them what's happening in this episode.
Well, listeners, the Platinum Boys are coming to drop some knowledge down from the heavens.
I actually have some bad news that we need to start with regarding
Oh
our
God.
Platinum Boy status. So this episode is Spider-Man, Marvel Spider-Man. I don't know about you, John, but I've chose to call it Marvel Spider-Man because
Oh yes,
there's so many Spider-Man games out there that are
Marvel Spider-Man.
Spider-Man. There you go. That's from henceforth. That's what it'll be called. No,
Spider-Man.
but we're just going to be talking about Spider-Man because John and I love it very much, and as he mentioned, we are the Platinum Boys for now. But they announced that along with New Game Plus, which is an update that is coming soon, and along with the new difficulty mode, which is called Legendary, which I'm a bit bummed about because all the other difficulty modes are like, puns. Like there's
Yeah, amazing,
amazing and
spectacular.
spectacular. I've never heard Legendary Spider-Man.
Yeah,
They could have
they
gone
should have
with.
done
I
superior.
was gonna say the exact same thing. Like, how cool would that be? Considering Doc Ock is the bad guy, just like a little
Yeah,
nod. And Superior does sound like a new difficulty that they
yeah,
added into the
Legendary is
game.
boring as shit.
Yeah, but anyway, along with that update, they've also released two new trophies that you can get in the game,
Oh
which
no.
means that we won't be Platinum Boys anymore. And those two
Well,
trophies are complete the game on New Game Plus, which I think is doable. I think I can do that.
oh yeah.
Yeah, I was just playing the game one more time, which I might have already done anyway. But then the other one is to complete the game on Legendary.
Shit. Well, if it's just mainline,
Yeah, just
that
beeline the
might
whole
be
story.
doable.
I mean, you could probably do them both at the
Well, I
same
think
time.
I was gonna say just do New Game Plus Legendary, and all of our gadgets are all the way maxed out
Mm,
mostly. So
mm.
that should help a lot.
I'm praying that works. I'm praying we can
Yeah.
do that. Um, but I'm gonna
But
Google it
as of right
first.
now, it's not out yet. Oh yeah,
Yes.
if it's just New Game Plus and Legendary mode, we should be able to do New Game Plus Legendary
Yeah, yeah,
and be
yeah,
good.
yeah, yeah. Hopefully. But
But
yeah,
we got
we are Platinum Boys. We are Spider-Man Platinum Boys. We've done everything except for some of the stuff that doesn't really count.
well, and there's gonna be new like story DLC anyway with Black Cat and stuff. So I
I'm
mean, there's
very
more
excited.
reason to talk. I am so pumped.
I, here's what I have to admit. This doesn't make me proud, but I am playing Spider-Man right now. I'm still playing it because for some reason I thought, ooh, I'm gonna get the benchmarks because I'm insane. Um,
Oh,
luckily, the benchmarks carry over into New Game Plus, so like you will probably just unlock them playing that because we've already got them built up already from the story. Um, but yeah, I'm actually playing a borrowed copy because I couldn't afford Spider-Man, and Mr. Jack Thomas was very nice enough to lend me his copy of
he's a
Spider-Man.
very sweet boy.
He is a very sweet boy, but it means that I'm like every time like they like, oh, the DLC will be out like here, and I've been like, Jack, can I keep it till then? He's like, yeah, okay, but you need to give it back because I have other people I need to lend to. So I'll probably get to play like the first episode, and then I'll have to find another copy of it to play the other two episodes. But like, I'm lucky enough that I'll be able to play the first episode and we'll be able to talk about that. But that being said, now that we've got all this guff out of the way, let's talk about Spider-Man. Let's talk about Marvel Spider-Man. John, we should break this down into segments. We didn't think about this, but maybe
No, we didn't.
let's just start with probably the thing that we've got the most thoughts on, which is the story. I feel like that's the thing that
Oh
we're gonna like the most.
my God. This is honestly one of my favorite Spider-Man stories.
After completing the game, I have to agree with you. I have to very much agree with you.
At first, we talked about this in our last podcast.
Hmm.
Um, we kind of saw the hints of where the Otto Octavius story was going.
Yes.
And when that first moment hits of like, he was it not the raft breakout, or is it at the raft breakout when he
Well,
finds out that Otto's?
the raft is where he finds out. I think it's it's
Yeah,
it's implied to us when he because Peter asks him to take the chip out and he takes it out, and then he gets like he sees a Norman on TV and then he puts it back in and he like smashes the screen with one of his arms, and that's like the hint that it's like, oh, he's turning evil. But like the first time Pete finds out is at the
Yeah.
raft.
So with those scenes, I was like, okay, like I get it. All right, Otto was his teacher. He's
Mm.
evil now. Like we're supposed to feel something. But it was not until that last fight,
Oof.
which is one of my favorite final bosses. It's
See,
so much fun to play.
it is fun. Um, I had an interesting experience with this. I guess we can't really segment this. This is all one thing. Gameplay and story kind of combines in this game. But
Yeah.
the thing with the last boss fight is I really, really liked the character of Martin Lee in this. I thought Martin Lee, Mr. Negative, was really, really good. And what was fun is like he offered like a actual interesting lore, like exploration and character exploration that Doc Ock wasn't really providing for me until the end of the game, because everyone knew where Doc Ock was going, and I knew, as a comic book fan, the ins and outs of Doc Ock's character. Well, I thought I did until the end, but then Martin Lee was like this secondary main villain who I was really interested in. I don't know anything about Mr. Negative, so they could have made up his whole story for all I know. Like, it was
Yeah.
really interesting. So when we got to the final fight with him, which is kind of like the secondary boss battle of the game, it's the last thing you do before the end of the game, and it's like there's a lot of emotional weight going there because you just find out why he's Mr. Negative. You find out all that just before you fight him. So I actually really enjoyed that fight with him, and I thought it was really interesting because you don't know whether you're in his, mind palace or you're in the real world and you're fighting him and he's turning into this big demon and stuff. So I thought that was really good and really thematical with his story. And then you get to the Dark Arc fight, and first of all, you're just, doing the generic, web him up, and then when he's webbed enough, you can punch him and you throw stuff back at him. And I was like, oh, okay, this isn't as interesting as the Mr. Negative fight. And then
You
the game
stand on
gets
the
you.
side of the fucking
Oh,
building.
dude. Oh
When
boy.
he rises and like the camera oh my God, it's so good.
It is good. It's good. I think I guess we'll start with the end, because the end is definitely the thing that impacted us both the most.
Yeah.
I want to know, John, because this is something that I think everyone I know who's played the game has we've all talked about this, and this is the biggest, most interesting thing to me. What were some of your favorite like lines or moments from that last scene?
So one of my favorite was one of my favorite moments is when the realization hits Peter that, oh wow, maybe I was wrong about Doc.
Yeah.
Because the whole time you're thinking, okay, it's this inhibitor thing. Doc Ock's like they're doing the Spider-Man 2 thing.
Mm.
And then he hits you with the you always knew. And
You
that's when you go,
knew.
oh no, like you and Peter have like the same reaction where you're like, oh shit, there's no coming back.
Yeah.
Because you
Yeah.
know that like this wasn't just, oh, he went crazy. It's like,
Yeah.
no, this was a very calculated plan.
The Doc Ock that you're fighting was always Dr. Octopus, and
Yeah.
the mask was, I thought that was such a smart twist, because like I said, going back to Martin Lee, I always kept thinking, why isn't Martin Lee the main villain? Like, he's such a good villain. He's got this like story of like he was a good man and he still is a good man, but he's got this dark side to him, and they're just reusing that with the Dark Arc, and it just feels like, but I realized in that moment that Martin Lee was a red herring. His whole purpose in the game, other than being, an interesting character in his own right, he is supposed to make you think that Doc Ock is just the same. That Doc
Yeah.
Ock is this nice guy that turned bad, just like Martin Lee. And Martin Lee's the sympathetic villain that you can see why he's doing it. Is you don't like you want him to stop him, and you think he's bad, but you also go, no, I get it. Like, and he has such a traumatic upbringing, and then so you just, as a player, you go, but Doc Ock is just the same, and he's not as interesting. And then in that moment, you realize that no. Martin Lee is sympathetic. Dr. Octavius is not. He's the opposite. He was bad from the beginning. He didn't have this tragic thing in his life. He's just evil. He's just pure
He's just a
evil.
selfish, petty man.
Oh, dude. And then it makes you look back at that scene with Martin Lee, and where you thought that like, oh, Norman Osborn's, you know, the evil one, but you're like, I'm starting to think now. I'm starting to think of maybe Doc Ock was just pretending. Oh no, don't do that, you know, Norman. But really, I feel like he was just as up for doing that to Martin Lee as
I
Norman
feel like
Osborn
the
was.
only reason Doc is mad about anything is that he got pushed out.
Yeah,
That's all he cares about was that he did not get the glory that he felt he deserved.
it actually makes you like Norman a bit because you're like,
Yeah.
God, I realize why Norman would like kick this guy out of
Yeah,
his
right.
life.
And oh God, it's just like it works perfectly with tying into the Aunt May story.
mm,
Because Aunt May's entire story is how she's proud of Peter
mm.
in every aspect of his life. While Doc is what happens when you realize that a parental figure has failed you.
Oh my God. And like it's not just what I really like is the game goes out of its way to be like Peter idolized Doc Ock way before he even knew him.
Yeah,
Like Dr. Octavius was his idol even when he was a kid, which is something that I think is completely new. Like Dr. Octavius has never really been this outward scientist. He's either worked for Oscorp, which is a big like that's in a lot of comics and TV shows, or he's just this underground scientist. But they make a point of making him no, he's this famous scientist that even when Peter was a teenager and getting into science, he even knew him then and he even idolized him then. So it's like your hero, you know? Which is
and you're rewarded for looking around, for seeing the
mm,
picture of them at graduation together, for Peter talking about the couch that he used to crash on when he
mm,
needed a place to stay. Like all of the little details come together to form this whole story, which the game does a really great job in general of having all these little details fill flesh out the world more.
yeah, and what it does really well is it makes you think, oh, what is the game doing now? And it's like it keeps giving you these things and it keeps frustrating you until the end where all those things that didn't make sense and those things that frustrated you suddenly add up, you know? Like,
Yeah.
for example, our complaint in the last podcast about him sounding like a maniac and sounding like an evil scientist way before he's, you know, become Dr. Octopus. We kept being like, he's just too obviously evil. And why can't Peter see it? And now, in hindsight, you go, holy shit. Like, of course, because he's evil when he's recording those. He's evil when he's calling you. It's just Peter is so blinded by his idolism that he's just not being able to see it. So what seemed like bad writing was actually just us not realizing the full extent of their relationship, you know? And
Yeah.
oh my God. And also like Doc Ock being this character, it adds, for me personally, it added so much significance to the final choice, which I'm quoting my friend here, but like that is such a Peter Parker Spider-Man choice. You know,
Yeah.
with great power comes great responsibility. Except his power isn't the spider power. In this circumstance, the power was the antidote. You know, and he had to. You know, it's the responsibility of like losing his aunt to save all these people. But to make that choice anyway would be hard. Would be devastating to Peter Parker because Aunt May's all he has left, really. But to add on top of that choice is that he just came from an event where his idol, someone he looked up to, uh, probably the person he looked up to just below Aunt May, just completely shattered that relationship, completely shattered his trust. And now he has to make that decision with that just happening.
Yeah.
It was the breaking point for me. I just broke down. I was
Oh,
weeping.
I teared up like but then there's just another like a thematic parallel of Doc Ock knowing Peter's secret, keeping it a secret from him that he knew it,
Mm.
um, and the malicious intent behind that. While you juxtapose that with Aunt May knowing his secret and keeping that from him,
Oh my
but
God, yeah, I didn't even
being
realize that.
like it was so great because I always loved the idea of Aunt May knowing
Yeah,
because
yeah.
she knows that he's doing it in Ben's memory,
Mm.
and that's just always like a really heartwarming thing, I think. And this game does such a good job of the idea that, Peter Parker and Spider-Man can never be separate
Yeah,
because no matter what, their lives are intertwined in almost a cosmic way.
yeah.
to like cosmic circumstance of like
Mm.
no matter what, like Peter Parker cannot be Spider-Man, Spider-Man cannot be anyone but Peter Parker because the entire city of New York, all of the connections to Peter Parker are connections to Spider-Man at the same time.
Yeah, it's one of the interesting things about Peter that sets him apart from a lot of other superheroes. But I mean, the obvious comparison is Batman, because Batman is like Bruce Wayne is a recluse. He's completely fake. Like unless he's in the Batcave or he's just talking to Dick Grayson, or Rick Grayson, as we now have to call him, apparently.
Oh
Um,
Lord, let's not talk about that.
yeah, exactly. Um, but like, other than that, if you ever see Bruce Wayne in public, or if you ever see him, in a party or whatever, he's just completely a facade. He's fake. He's just, And then Batman is when he gets to be him, And whereas that's like the antithesis of Peter Parker, where Spider-Man and Pete are both very much the same person with the same
Yeah,
wants and needs, and it's tougher because Bruce can become something else, but Peter can't do that. When he puts the mask on, he's just Peter Parker, but with the ability to save people. That's he's
yeah,
just him. He has all the same values. He has the same codes. So it makes storytelling like this impossible for a lot of other heroes. Like there's very few people you could tell this story with other than Peter Parker, and it just works so well because it's like. Because, like, imagine, making this Batman comparison again. Imagine Batman being betrayed by, like, a mentor of his. Like, it wouldn't, you wouldn't care as much because it would be like, oh, just another thing on the pile of things that Batman has to be traumatized about. Whereas this feels like, even though Pete they made it, the conscious decision to make him a bit older than the typical, Spider-Man story. Usually they start young and then the sequels are older. They start older, but he's still young because he's still. I mean, he's the same age as us. I think. Like
yeah.
he's not like 30-year-old Spider-Man. So he still has these like idyllic dreams, and I think that this game kind of features as an origin story for a new type of Spider-Man. For mentor Spider-Man when and that's further, corroborated when he takes on Miles at the end, which I thought was really nice. Like he's lost both of his mentors. He loses them both, and now he has to buck up and become the mentor. He has to replace them and become someone's mentor. And hopefully he's learned from these, two mentors. He's learned from one of them in a very twisted way, but like
Yeah.
what to and not to do. It's just, oh man, we could talk about this game for years, and we're going to.
Yeah.
So
One thing I wish that we had gotten, um, with the talking about the post-credit scenes as they were,
yes,
I do wish that we had gotten a scene with Martin Lee.
yeah,
I don't know if it
yeah.
would have been too much, but the game does a really good job of being like, look, Martin Lee legitimately cares about Aunt May.
Oh, 100%.
Legitimately, it's not a front, it's not a facade. He legitimately, and I would have loved to have seen a scene with him reacting.
Yes, and seeing how far he's gone and almost like regretting it. I'm praying because we did not get closure with Martin Lee. I felt like we had a really
Yeah.
nice boss battle, but then he was just knocked out, and then we didn't
Yeah,
see
they
him
don't
again.
talk at all. Like they don't have a conversation.
I would really like it if we got kind of this is a weird obscure reference, but in the Amazing Spider-Man for PS3, the video game based on the
Oh
movie,
yeah.
um, the lizard is a ally because it's set after the game. So the lizard helps you a lot. Well, I shouldn't say call him the lizard. That's me. Dr. Connors helps you a lot throughout the game. I'm part of the problem, John.
Yeah.
And I would love to see a similar situation in the sequel where Martin Lee could kind of not obviously redeem himself completely because I think he's a little bit beyond that, but begin to redeem himself by being like, listen, I know what I did was awful. I understand the lengths of my actions now. Like Dr. Octavius is almost like his wake up call. It's like, oh shit, I was
Yeah.
that, I was that, and we could see him maybe communicating, via phone calls or something. I
Or
would just
maybe
like to
just
see
a
the
scene where he
continuation.
visits the prison. He visits the raft and they have a conversation.
I just think it
Like
would be
any,
so interesting. Because he was a really standout character for me. Because I mean, I loved all the villains, but I mean, my main issue with them is that you don't get enough time with a lot of them. So
yeah.
I was only really able to kind of form an opinion about the two main ones because they're the ones that you really see the most of. Um, I mean, I got kind of a fun opinion of Shocker because we spent a little bit more time with him, and I think he was like a really interesting take as well. I know we're jumping around here, but like I like the idea of Shocker just wanting to serve his time, but no one would let him.
Yeah. He's
Because
like, I don't want to do this. They keep on making me.
he has always been like the jokey, villain, the one who always gets beaten in one punch. Um, Sometimes he's a bit more, he's a bit more prevalent, but he's never really been the big bad. He's always either
Yeah.
working for someone or he's just taken down at the beginning of the movie or the beginning of the show. So I like the idea that instead of having him just be that joke again, this time it's more of a sympathetic one where he's like, listen, I was a bad guy and I did bad things, but now I just want to serve my time and but I'm haunted by the mistakes I've made because people keep bringing me back up and forcing me to do jobs and stuff.
Yeah.
And I thought that made the first, actual villain fight interesting because I was starved of that at the beginning of the game. I was like, where's, Fisk was cool, but he wasn't like a costume villain, where's the Spider-Man villains? And then the first Shocker fight, you're like, oh, I feel bad now. I'm
Yeah.
beating this guy and he just doesn't want to do this. But yeah, getting back to the finale of the game, I wanted to ask you as well, like, what did you think then of, this is more of a thematic thing, like a cosmetic thing, but I did think it fed into the theme of like, what did you think of like the whole, the new suit, like the building the new suit?
Oh, I thought I loved the look of the suit.
Mm,
I think it's a great look. Um, and I just love this idea of like he's using the things that Doc taught him.
yeah.
And then as the fight goes on, he's slowly being stripped of all of that ideal, like, because the costume's slowly breaking apart. And it's
Mm,
at the same time that this facade of what he thinks that Doc
yeah.
is breaking apart in front of him. It's this great, like a really smart visual storytelling.
I also really appreciated that about it. I had to, though, bypass my one issue, which was I didn't quite understand. Because he says that he's going to build something that's going to help him defeat the arms. But all it does is replenish your, gadgets, which
Yeah.
I guess it helps, but it felt like less of a connection.
Well, and then also the arms were able to break through it. So it was almost like, what did you need it for?
Yeah, I just wish that I liked that it was in there. I wouldn't like them to take it out because, like you said, it worked so well, and like especially, the snapping moment, the moment where he realizes that Doc Ock was a bad guy, is the moment just after he smashes the faceplate off, and you see
Yeah.
like Peter's mouth, and that's what enables him to be like, you knew, because it's like I love that's it's like the cracking point. It's like he smacks off
Yeah.
the biggest piece. I just wish that they could have figured out a bit more of an interesting way to connect them, and maybe even given us a new interesting power, and instead given the
Yeah.
reload power to a different suit. Because like I was
And then
expecting
also
it
the
to be
fact
like,
that like, hey, everything's going to shit. Let me build a new suit real quick.
yeah, it was a bit interesting. I will say though, the idea of the suits were integrated pretty cool, and one of my favorites is the white suit and how that was designed by Dr. Octavius. I thought
Yeah.
that was really just a kick in the teeth. I actually thought that he was going to go back to the original suit after he finds, after the final fight. But that's kind of up to you. Personally, I didn't wear it again because in my head, Spider-Man was like, oh God, I can't wear this anymore. This was like designed by Doc Ock, and it's like such a friendly thing at the beginning. He's so worried when Doc Ock finds out that he's, that he might be Spider-Man, but then Doc Ock being like, oh, you helped Spider-Man, that's awesome, I'm going to help you out. It was like validation, and then all of a sudden
Yeah.
that's completely ripped away at the end of the game. So I
My
thought it
thing
was,
is, I realized that after I started unlocking more suits, I just stopped using the normal suit.
I see, yeah, I get what you're
I
saying.
just got to this point where I was like, I like these other suits more.
It was
Um,
it was an interesting dilemma because I always made a point to put it back on during story missions because I was always worried that they were going to reference it, and they never really did. I guess
yeah,
that was a conscious choice, but I kind of I was like always wearing that suit in the and then when I would do side stuff, I would put on the silly costumes and the fun costumes and stuff. Um, but it's because I know JT like really liked the bulletproof yellow and black one.
oh, I
Um,
like that one a lot too.
yeah, but he was saying like sometimes it was a bit weird because like like Spider-Man was supposed to be shocked in a scene, but his eyes were like because the yellow and black one is quite like it's like slits instead of like
Yeah,
big open ones, so it's a little bit strange. Um, But again, the game just gives you that freedom, and I appreciate that the game give you the choice, to do stuff like
Yeah.
that. Um,
One of my favorite things that we haven't touched on yet,
mhm.
that's fits into our story stuff, whatever, is just the MJ story.
Okay, we can do a whole fucking bit on MJ because MJ is really interesting. You pointed this out to me, and after you did, I could not stop seeing it. The MJ is like Lois Lane,
Yeah.
like, and I was like wondering because I love MJ in Spider Man. I never liked her really with Pete.
Yeah.
I more liked her as a separate character. I mentioned this before, but like Spectacular Spider-Man is like one of my favorite shows, and in that she never like she does like she has the whole when he's like worried, oh, what's this woman that Aunt May's gonna set me up with, and then he opens the door and she's like, well, you just hit the jackpot, Tiger, and it's like that scene's in it, but then after that, she never expresses any interest in dating Pete, and it's more about Gwen Stacy because I've always liked that Gwen Stacy and Pete relationship. It feels a bit more
Yeah.
real to me. But I do love MJ as a character in her own right. This character was very, very different to any MJ I've seen. Until you mentioned that it's like Lois Lane crossed with what did you say the Kristen Dunst
Oh,
one?
Kristen Dunst, yeah.
Yeah, and I was like, dude, it's weird because like never before has a character been so different to a character that I like, but I've also liked the very different version. If you get
Yeah.
what I'm saying, like I like them separately as two separate things, and I almost bought this one as Peter's girlfriend more than I do the comic book NJ. Like
Yeah,
this
no.
one feels like more like she would put up with Peter's shit a little bit.
Well, and then my favorite thing was this wasn't a story where, because a lot of Spider-Man stories are Peter Parker can't be happy because he has to be Spider-Man.
Yes.
This is very much like, no, Peter just needs to learn how to mix the two.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that is very much like with Miles and with MJ, and the fact that their whole story is just see me as an equal. And
Mm,
then he goes, yeah, you're right. You do a lot of shit.
mm.
And then it's so much better than the other versions of that story where it's just, no, I'm trying to protect you. Ugh,
Yeah.
everyone I love get hurt. Shut up, dude. It's
Well,
New York. Everyone gets hurt.
well, that's yeah, you're right because it is an improvement because I mean going back to like Spectacular Spider-Man, like that is a problem with Spectacular Spider-Man. In season one, there's this interesting thing of like he keeps pissing people off because they think that he's prioritizing the bugle over friendships and stuff because every time he runs off in the middle of a sentence, the next day they see all his photos in the paper. So it's like you weren't doing anything important. You were just running off and taking photos of Spider-Man. But in actual fact, he was being Spider-Man.
Yeah.
And it's like, that works for a little bit. But then it's like, well, no, your friends would just disown you if you did this enough.
Yeah, they
Like,
just don't want to be, you don't want to be friends
yeah.
with that guy.
So the solution was always like, well, eventually he tells someone, usually the person he's dating, whether it's Gwen or Mary Jane, that he is Spider-Man. And then you have no tension whatsoever. It's completely resolved, and there's no reason for anyone to be angry. And I always thought, it's like, where do you draw the line then? Do you keep him from telling the person he loves that he's Spider-Man, or do you tell her and then there's no tension? But what this game was like, no. Just because he tells her that he's Spider-Man doesn't mean there wouldn't be tension. It would just come in a different form. And I thought that, like you said, the game takes the stance of like, no, he's fine with her knowing that he's Spider-Man, but what he's not fine with is her having an involvement in that. And it's almost like made me appreciate that Flash and Iris relationship that you like so much a bit more, because I realized that this game does that relationship like a prequel to that relationship almost,
Yeah.
just a little bit more streamlined, a little bit more clear and I was a bit more able to understand it, because it's like when Iris is like, we are the Flash, which she doesn't, because I would always laugh and be like, no, Barry's the Flash. But like, it's more playing this game, I kind of understood it more. It's like more like, no, it's just like, you have to let me, as your wife, as your girlfriend, as your partner, into this life. You can't tell me
Yeah.
about it and then keep me at arm's length. And I thought this game was so good at that. And the resolution is so subtle and so brilliant, because they could have had a big deal where Peter's like, fine, MJ, I finally trust you. But he just does it so subtly, because she's like, I'm going to sneak into Norman Osborn's headquarters. And he goes, yeah, okay, but be careful. And it was
Yeah,
just such a subtle, but like that's how real relationship arguments are resolved. It's not this big blowout. It's usually just like a no, yeah, I was wrong.
yeah. It's like, no, yeah, partner.
I thought that was really good. The only thing I would say, I will. Sorry, I hijacked your MJ talk. I
Oh
did
no.
think that it was a little bit quick to get back into a relationship. I would have liked
Oh
that
yeah.
in a sequel.
Well, they also did a time jump, which was a little.
Yeah, yeah, that's
They're
true.
like, all right, we're gonna time jump. You're gonna get the kiss, and I did go yes, but I was also like, I could have waited, though. I didn't need to see it.
Yeah, it's like
I
go,
wish they would have just ended it with the, um, I never said you could stop coming over, because well, first of all, that line,
yes, yes, that
I had
was.
to pull my collar a little bit. I was like, the tension here, my lord.
It's like Scooby Doo when he cuts the fog with his knife
Yeah,
with his with his claw. It's like ooh.
it's like, geez. Whew. And I loved, you could tell that they have a Bible. The creators of this game, they have a Bible,
Mm,
and they're like, these are events that have happened in Peter's life.
yeah.
Because they'll reference the same, like, oh, this was our first date place, or oh, Peter's bad at cooking. They just have these little things that are mentioned over and over again, though. But you can tell that they're just like, these are things that have happened in this world. These are like little personality quirks, whatever, that each and every character has. And it's just, it makes it so fleshed out because it makes those little conversations not tedious.
Oh, definitely, and it really builds um it builds a world which I really appreciate because the the one thing I do like I was bummed about this game. And again, it's nothing on the game. The game shouldn't, do this, especially in the first thing. But it was like, I wanted to explore more. I wanted to be in more of this universe, Um, and that's something that can come in the sequel.
Yeah.
But what I thought was good is like my desire to do that came from these consistencies and these like you said the always adhering to the Bible, always. It wasn't like, hey, let's do a bazillion references to things that have happened, but none of them are connected and none of them are dated and none of them are like integral to the plot. It was like, hey, okay, we have this short history of Peter Parker. He's fought maybe 10 villains, Um, he's fought mainly the main ones that you'd expect him to fight. And let's find out when he fought them, what happened, when did he break up with MJ? When did he get with her? Everything is completely, strictly planned so that everything in the game, all the conversations have this history to them that isn't just like, oh, remember that one comic. It's not remember that one comic. It's remember that one event that actually happened that is consistent with everything in the world.
And what's great is that it's not like, oh, hey, we're going to tell you about this event so that when you hear about it later, you know about it. It's like, no,
mm,
they're just going to mention these things that we know you don't know about, but the characters know about. And
yeah,
it's because it's their world.
and I appreciate that because you never knew if it was going to foreshadow or not. And obviously, some of them did. Like some bits did foreshadow, but a lot
Oh
of
my
them.
God. After this, gotta talk about Harry fucking Osborn.
Oh my god. Okay, we will get to that. But like a good example was Pete's board of all of like the villains he's taken down.
Yeah.
I wish that there were two more on there, but I did like it. Because it was like the whole game. I mean, it kind of was a bit ruined because I'd seen the Raft trailer, where all the
Yeah.
villains do break out. But ignoring that, just looking at it from a product as just this one piece of product, forgetting all the marketing, it was really good because it's like, hey, look at all these villains that Peter's fought before. He gives you a lot of information about how he fought them before, and then you're like, okay. And then later in the game, they turn up and they're very consistent with those personalities that Pete, describes, which is really cool. And also when you go to Dr. Octavius's lab, you've got all like almost like a monument to each of them, and he gives you a little bit more information then, and then you fight them later. I just wish that Mysterio and the Lizard were on that board
Yeah.
because we know in the terms of the game that he did fight them because they're at the party and they talk about how they're at the party and stuff. And it would have been cool to not known which ones of these villains are going to show up, Like Fisk was on there, which was cool because I was like, is he going to come back into it? And he didn't. But I just wish that Mysterio and the Lizard were on there to just kind of complete this okay, these are the ones he's fought. He hasn't fought Craven. You know, we know he's fought the Chameleon because he has that really cool line in one of the side
Yeah.
quests where he's like, "Oh, geez, the Chameleon might be on it again," which I thought was really fun. But like, I just like that it isn't. You know, I love Arkham. The Arkham series is still my favorite superhero games of all time. But like, in Arkham, it's a Batman who has fought literally every single villain you could think of. Like, he's fought every single one. He's a seasoned veteran. Whereas this was like Peter Parker. He's years into it, but he hasn't fought like you haven't missed loads, you know? You haven't missed every single, like, you haven't missed the Clone Saga, you haven't missed like Venom, you haven't missed like all these big, like, you haven't missed the Goblin as well, which is a big deal. Like,
Oh yeah.
so speaking of the Goblin and speaking of
So I
potentially
think
Venom,
something that the game does incredibly well is the Harry Osborn thread.
oh, it's so good.
That
It's
thread
so
that
so good.
starts like with the research stations. No, it doesn't even start there. It starts when Peter loses his apartment. And he
Yes.
goes, "Oh, I wish I could stay with Harry, but he's out of the country."
Mm.
That's the little kernel that you get, and you're like, "Okay, they name dropped Harry. Interesting. Maybe this is a one-time thing. Maybe
That's
that's their way
exactly
of
what I
just writing
thought.
him out of the show or the
Yeah.
sorry, I say show because it is like a show. It's what
Yeah.
it feels like. And then you get to the research stations, and you're like, okay, Harry Osborn has a dead mother who is very about keeping the environment safe and all this stuff.
Mm.
Okay, another interesting kernel of more information about this Osborn family we don't really know about.
Mm.
Then you get to the Devil's Breath. Then you find out that, oh, this is about Harry
Mm.
and about this genetic disorder that his mom has and that he has.
Yeah.
And then you get to the ending.
Oh my god.
And I, even up to that point, I was like, okay, Harry's in another country doing medical tests.
Mm.
I would not have expected Harry to actually be in that room.
You were right there. Like, you're
Like,
right next to him in that mission. You don't even know. But you're MJ, what is best friend in the context of this game.
yeah.
Um, and you're right there. And you care so much. And you're finding out all these horrible things about Harry. And you want so much to be like, well, where is he? Like, I want to help him. And you walk into that room with no idea that he's right next to you. Like, it's so thematically just juicy. And because at this point you care so much about MJ, like, I was just like, I feel so bad for her. Like, she is this investigative person. She always knows the solution to all the problems. She even knows the solution to problems that Pete doesn't have the solution to. And she couldn't see it, you know, she couldn't figure it out. And she could have, oh man, it sucks. It sucks so
And
bad.
then just the fact that, like, you care so much about him because of his relationship to these two. And then,
And the stations as well made me care a
yeah,
lot about him.
and then just finding out that he has a Venom symbiote.
Does he though?
I mean, I that's what I got from it.
Oh, this is a hot debate because
This is what I got from it.
He definitely has something that is it's like 80% sure it's probably a symbiote. But just thinking about game and how you would do the game and the fact that Miles is here now, my theory, let's start theorizing. This will be the segment where we theorize like what Harry's deal is. I don't think you can do Venom without doing Black Suit Pete. And I think that Pete is at a point right now in his life where everything's going up Pete. I know he lost his aunt, which is horrible, obviously, but he's really learned a lot and he's progressed
In the
as a
6 months
character.
ahead, he is in a better place.
Yes. However, you've still got the lingering death of Aunt May, and you've probably got a lot of stress now because of that vacuum that they keep talking about. Kingpin's gone. Everyone is gone. There's a huge vacuum. So, how do you do Venom? How do you do a symbiote without first doing Black Suit? And in a game where they have every single spider suit you could ever want for, except for the one that everyone
I was going to
wants.
say there's a reason, obviously, they didn't want to put the Venom suit in or the
Yes.
Black Suit Spider-Man in. It's because they have plans for that.
So
That idea, at least.
What if now that we have Miles, and now that Miles is almost certainly going to be a playable character in the second game,
God, I hope so.
what if we have a game Marvel's, instead of Spider-Man 2, it's Marvel's Spider-Men, you know? And the
Yeah.
idea is you jump in between Pete and Miles, and Pete is like teaching you the ropes. And when you're Pete, I've gone full hog on this, I don't know if you can tell. When you're Pete, you have all of your gadgets fully upgraded from the first game, because it would suck to take them away from you, because you'd be like, why doesn't he have them right now?
Either that or you're gonna get just completely new ones.
Well, that's what I was thinking. With Pete, you have all the gadgets that you have before, but you're like, this is kind of boring. I already had this stuff. But with Miles, you've got his sting, you've got his
Yeah.
invisibility, you've got all these new options, and you've got these new types of gadgets you can unlock. And then Pete starts going black suit, and you're like, oh, Pete's got black suit. But it's all fine at the beginning. You can still play as him. But then, what if Miles has to fight Pete in the black suit because Pete goes too far or something? And now you're Miles fighting against the guy that you cared so much about and have played for a game and a half. And then if the black suit isn't on Harry, then what is a perfect foil to black suit Peter? Carnage on Harry.
That would be interesting.
Now I
But
don't know.
but it
That's a
was
bit
definitely
crazy.
black though.
But it was in the green liquid, and also
True.
I just don't understand how they're going to do the Venom symbiote and the Goblin story all in one. It's such
Well,
a
that's the
like
thing.
a
I don't
crazy.
think they're gonna do the Goblin story. I really don't. I could see them not doing Green Goblin, Norman.
Maybe not Norman, yeah, but it
Yeah,
could be Harry. I mean, Harry has
I
been the
could.
Goblin before.
I when I think about the second game and the idea of having Miles and Peter, the only thing that I can think of that would is strong enough that would need both of them to fight would be Venom.
Mm, yeah, maybe. I
And
mean,
like
there are a
just
lot
the
of
thing of it like reaching to the glass, like that would like because it just looks so much like, the symbiote thing usually it looks when it moves.
yeah. Look,
Because it went and tapped the glass and like touched Norman's hand. Because
the
that's the thing I could think of is like, but then it's weird because it's like, what? How did he get the symbiote? What it like?
yeah.
There's so many
That's
questions.
right. There are two things that are making me go, maybe it's not as simple as Venom. And the
Mm,
two things are, first, that's a lot of exposition you have to get through. It's a lot of exposition. You have to do the rocket into space, which if they're going to go off the Venom movie, it could just be like Norman Osborn's rocket, because in the Venom movie, it's like a billionaire who's basically Norman Osborn sends a rocket to space, instead of like, the normal story, which is just, it's a rocket going to space by the US, like NASA or something. Okay, so Norman Osborn sends a rocket. He's looking for cure for Harry. It brings back Venom. But then it's like, okay, you've got that explained. But then why is he in the... He's in
Well,
the
the only
green.
thing I could think of is that the Venom symbiote is the only thing keeping his body stable, but it's not healing him,
Yeah.
but it's keeping him alive.
And I can see that. But then he's also in the globulin green. Like, he's in the green. He's not in,
Yeah.
like, a random tank. He's in a tank that is filled with the green, which we know is the thing that gives Goblin his disposition and his powers. Like... It's like two villains were teased in one scene.
Yeah.
Because you've got Harry in the tank of the green, which is very akin to how, Norman gets his powers. But you've also got him wrapped in what appears to be the symbiote. I
So
honestly
it could
don't
just
know.
be a thing of like the green not necessarily turning him into a goblin, but giving him. But the thing is, if he was getting any sort of enhancement from the serum, why would he need to be still in there?
Yeah. Yeah. I
So it's very interesting. A lot of important questions. I'm very excited for the sequel.
I am. And what could honestly happen, again, more speculation, is that the symbiote could, like, Norman's using it to keep his son alive because he figures, it out. But, because, Harry has never been Venom, as far as I know. But maybe when the Harry story, continues and goes along, maybe the green is what brings him back to life. Maybe that's the final thing. But maybe the symbiote even leaves him. Because the symbiote has been known to, like, just reject hosts.
Yeah.
So maybe Norman is forcing it to bond with Harry right now. But it leaves Harry, and that's when it gets to Peter. I just don't know how
You could also be that maybe the symbiote isn't necessarily evil, but mixed with whatever Norman's using, the goblin
Ooh.
serum, kind of transforms this alien thing into a kind of, we get a goblinized Venom, like a symbiote that's just this thing that Norman maybe cooked up in a lab
So
that
the
can
so the
kind of,
oh, I didn't even think of that. So the symbiote is making Peter stronger, but the thing that's making him meaner is actually just the green.
yeah,
You
it's
know,
a mixture of both things that kind of create this new goblin Venom that we see.
he could. I'm just really speculating now, but he could be like something like toxic.
Yeah,
Like he could be a completely different symbiote. I mean, it would be completely weird to not do Venom
yeah, it
first.
would be.
Yeah, I don't know, but there's a lot of potential there. I thought it was a really good, non-specific setup.
Yeah,
The main focus of it, which we talked about before, but now we're just getting to speculating, was the reveal of Harry. And that Harry is going to be this character, and that he was so close, to them the whole time, which I thought they did really well. Like
and
all the
that
rest
he
is
is
just
the
fan
reason
service.
for the entire game.
Yes, 100%. Oh, fuck, it's so good. It's so
Yeah,
good. And I want to talk, because we skipped over the mother a little bit. I do like the addition of the mother, because Norman has always come across as like, he's just evil, for the sake of being evil. He's just come across as how Doc Ock comes across at the end of this game.
yeah.
But it almost flips them on their heads, where it makes Dr. Octopus the evil forever one. And it makes Norman obviously this jerk. He's obviously a dick. I'm not saying he was ever a nice guy,
But he's very sympathetic.
but he is, because it's like,
Well, because Norman just seems like a regular asshole, one that you
yes.
would come across in any day, everyday life. It's like,
And
okay, he's a guy who thinks he's a little bit too self-important, but he's not evil.
yeah, and he definitely feels like a lot of those people that get up to that wealth,
Yeah.
like the
Well,
whole
the
idea
the
of
testing of the devil's breath on a child though is a little um the bridge too far, maybe. I won't
yes,
say he's not evil, but he's
he's definitely more
doesn't have a good moral
sympathetic.
compass.
Yeah, and I think that the Norman I'm used to, um, just comics, cartoons, everything, is very much just, oh, this guy's a dick.
Crazed
Like he's
psychopath.
horrible to his son. Then that's the thing. That's the one thing that they didn't bring over from the comics. Um, he cares about Harry, which is
Yeah.
something that he rarely ever does. Like, there's always this weird dichotomy where he loves Pete more than he loves Harry, because he's like,
Yeah.
Pete is like, achieving stuff, and Harry's just this disappointment.
Well, and this Peter's more so just a tool he uses against Ock,
Yes.
against
Yeah, yeah,
Otto.
yeah.
Peter, for him, Peter is just a tool to be like, oh, hey, Peter, why don't you come work for me, huh?
Yeah. And it's almost like everyone in his life now, that he has this singular goal to save his son. Everyone is just a tool. Even the
Yeah,
mayoralship is just a tool of saving his son. He just wants his son back. And I love that line. It's so subtle, but when you're Mary Jane sneaking through Norman's apartment, she says, everything changed when Harry's mum got sick. Because that could be interpreted many, many ways. And one of the ways I interpret it is that's when Norman became like Norman Osborn. Like,
yeah.
before that, he was a little bit of a dick. But like, that's when he became like the Norman Osborn that we all know, because
That's
it's
when he
like,
became driven.
yes, yeah, exactly. And that's when he stopped caring about anyone except for his family, basically.
I like this
um,
version of Norman a lot, and I like that he almost seems too old to fight.
yeah, I
You
would
know, if
not.
I had to fight that guy in a cutscene, I'd feel bad because he's like 50.
They take, right, I don't know if this is specifically taken from Spectacular. I know I reference this a lot, but basically I finished the game and I was like, wow, I love Spider-Man, and I need to go back and rewatch all of Spectacular Spider-Man right now. So it's fresh in my mind. But there's a scene in Spectacular Spider-Man, the first ever episode, which is quite fun. It's not the best episode. It's like one of those shows that gets better and better with time,
Yeah,
like a lot of shows. But there's one scene that I really, really like in the pilot, and it's Norman Osborn being pinnacle Norman Osborn. And what it is the Vulture has Norman Osborn in his grasps, and he's like screaming at him because they hate each other, because the Vulture
yeah.
is basically his technology was stolen by Norman. So he's screaming at Norman, and he's like, "I'm going to drop you unless you apologize to me." And Norman Osborn, he's got no way of saving himself. He knows he's gonna die if he doesn't apologize, but he just turns and he goes, "I never apologize." And then the Vulture drops him, and then
And
and it's like Spider-Man saves him, but he had no idea that Spider-Man was gonna save him.
yeah,
He's so stubborn that he's willing to die before apologizing.
And so,
And
I mean,
this,
same thing happens with Otto. Like
that's what I
they
was
have
gonna
that
say.
same.
He's literally he picks him. Norman is terrified. He's
Yeah,
actually genuinely terrified. But as soon as Otto starts to be like, you need to like say sorry, are you gonna pay? Norman's face completely changes, and he goes, "You may as well kill me." Like it's
yeah.
so Norman Osborn. It's amazing. I loved him in this, but like you said, I can't see him as the Goblin. I really can't see him specifically, becoming the Goblin unless he gets like an exosuit, just like in the first Spider-Man movie, as
It would
opposed to just.
still be really weird because he's just
Mm,
so, like even I mean Otto I guess is old, but like Norman looks like your grandfather.
yeah, and Otto's whole point is that he's old and his body isn't working.
Yeah.
Like that's the whole point of him. Whereas the Goblin, to me, feels like he would still put up
Well,
a fight.
as bad a person that this Norman like is and the questionable actions that he takes,
Mm.
he does not, unless something happens in the next game, seem like a villain though.
Yeah,
Like the
yeah,
type of guy, he doesn't seem like the type of guy who'd be like, now I'm gonna destroy the city. It's like, no, everything is a pawn in saving his family.
yeah.
So
I
he
get what
wouldn't destroy any of that stuff.
and I think it'll be interesting to see how he reacts now that he's not the mayor and that
Yeah.
he's gonna have to go to further lengths to save his son. Um, but I would not be surprised if it doesn't go the symbiote route, if Harry does end up being some version of the Goblin, because I mean that's happened before many times, and
Yeah.
I mean it just calls to the Amazing Spider-Man 2. It feels a little bit like that, where Norman is this aged, like, person who's given Harry everything, and then Harry like crumbles under the
Well, I
pressure
think
of
it's
it.
the worst part is really going to be the fact that Norman throws away everything to save his son,
Mm.
but in doing so has destroyed his son.
Yeah, yeah. It's so much potential there for
Yeah.
that relationship. But yeah,
I
Norman
think
as a
we're good
character.
on story stuff, right? Unless there's any other.
I mean, there's so much. I do want to
I know.
mention one more character.
Okay. Yeah.
Um, J. Jonah Jameson.
Oh my God. Alex Jones, podcaster, J. Jonah Jameson is amazing.
I was torn because at the start I was annoyed because to me Jameson has always been the not necessary evil but necessary dickhead. Like he has always had a genuine reason, as annoying as it is. He's always had like he actually does make a lot of sense. And there were bits in the game where he did, like when he says how like there was never any problems before Spider-Man came around. We never had supervillains before we had superheroes. I was like, that sounds like J. Jonah Jameson to me.
Yeah.
But then there was also the Alex Jonesy bits where I was like, that doesn't really sound like Jonah. Doesn't
My
seem like he would make things up.
yeah. I'd say my
However,
favorite thing is after you beat the game.
oh, when he admits that he's like, okay, maybe Spider-Man has like listened to me.
Well, that's the best thing is he's like, yes, Spider-Man's a good thing because I made him better. Like it's the most perfect like logic of just like, yeah, the only reason he like is now like a hero or whatever is because I've showed him the way.
But I like Jonah as this almost you can never pick apart his argument 100%. He always has somewhat of a point, which he did a lot in the game. But then a lot of the game, he also felt like the Alex Jonesy parody. The problem is every time I went to hate on it, I would enjoy it so much.
Yeah.
So like I couldn't 100% down on that side of Jonah. I was still a bit bummed that he was like lying sometimes, which I felt like Jonah never really does. There's the awesome bit when in one of the Chameleon stories where the Chameleon pretends he's Spider-Man and starts robbing banks and stuff, and Jonah's like, oh, finally, he's showing his true colors, and then when it comes out that he wasn't, it was an imposter, Jonah issues like a retcon, like an apology, but then he's
Yeah, a
also really
retraction.
sarcastic. Retraction. But he's also really sarcastic about it being like it's only a matter of time until the webhead. Like I like that Jonah, where he's never gonna lie. He's always gonna tell the truth as he sees it. Whereas this Jonah was a little bit too Alex Jonesy, but I still like was so entertained. I mean, the idea
Yeah.
of him having a podcast and like I don't know if anyone has seen the new advert that I put out on Commit to the Bit. Where I was basically playing that Jonah because
Yeah.
there's this intern that he has in the game, that he keeps screaming at, and I love it when he screams the Inter. It's the funniest scenes in the whole game when you're just swinging around the city and you're hearing him when he tells the Inter to fire himself and then rehire himself. But when I was like trying to figure out how to do this advert, and I was like, I'm just going to become J. Jonah Jameson. Like, that's all I'm
Yeah.
going to do.
Oh, and I loved when he's shilling his book.
Yeah. But another like world building thing about that was like
Yeah.
he kept mentioning stuff and being like, oh wow, that's cool. Like he mentions his son, which was like, oh, that's really cool. Like that maybe we're gonna get like some sort of, I mean, if they do Venom, they might do it through Jonah's son, which is like the traditional way of doing it, or they could even do Colonel Jupiter in the future, which is a crazy storyline. I don't think they will, but they might. And then he also mentions that he paid for the Scorpion suit, which is like a really cool like bit of world building. And and again, it all feels consistent with this world that they've built. And then again, really quickly, because I know we want to move off characters. Did you like Silver Sable? I know you didn't like her goons.
Oh, I hated her mercenaries. They're the worst. I think she was a necessary character, but I don't know if I could argue that she added that much.
The thing is, I don't know much about Sable. I know her father more from the comics.
Mm-hmm.
And I've always seen him as a little bit of a why are you here? Like you always have like there's like the Goblin, there's Doc Ock, and there's Sinister Six, and then there's like Kingpin or like Tombstone, and like there's usually 3 powers in New York, always rivaling for control. And then every time Sable shows up, I'm like, oh yeah, I forgot this guy exists.
Yeah.
Whereas Silver Sable has always been a bit more interesting, but I don't know much about her. I will say that the moment I liked her was the moment she left. And it wasn't like because she left, but like she just became really likable for like a second, and then she left. Like because she's like, Spider-Man, you have given me a lot to think about, and maybe I was wrong. And I was like, oh wow, she's actually showing character. And she's like, anyway, I'm leaving now forever. I was like, no.
It's one of those things where it's like, I get why you're here. I don't know if the game would really be any different without you. Like if you take her out, I don't really think you lose anything important.
No, I mean, she's probably, I think it's safe to say that she's going to be the focus of the 3rd DLC, which is called Silver Lining.
Oh, yeah, that makes sense.
But I think maybe that was the same as like how the Black Cat missions feel like this has gone nowhere.
This is setup. This is 100% setup.
Yeah, so I think that Silver Sable, other than the fact that they needed the mercenaries to give you like an alternate foe, they did also
a 3rd type of guy.
Yeah, which is fine. I mean, even jokes. I love that when you're playing the game and he's like, "Wow, you guys start to look the same. I guess there's only so many outfits to go around."
Yeah.
But yeah, I think that was set up. Same as Black Cat. Don't quite know what the second DLC is going to be because we've got Black Cat, Silver Sable, and I'm not really sure who else they can expand on unless they introduce a new character.
Maybe Crazy, we could get Miles DLC. That'd be interesting, but I feel like they want to save Miles for the next game.
Yeah, I mean, they probably want the DLC to be stuff that you don't need to play to understand the second game.
Yeah.
Because not everyone's going to play the DLC. But Sable was cool. I thought she was fine. I'm glad that she was in there.
Yeah, I didn't have any problems with her. I'm just like, when I try to talk to her about it, it's like, oh well, I don't really have an opinion here nor there.
Okay, John, what do you want to talk about next?
Okay, so I wanted to go into gameplay specific type stuff. First thing is, what was your favorite side mission?
Favorite side mission? Goodness, I mean, this isn't really gameplay wise, but like I loved the copycat Spider-Man.
That was fun.
I thought it was fun, not just because it's fun. Like when I heard about that before the game, unfortunately, because everyone was posting pictures of them with the copycat Spider-Man. Because why wouldn't you? I did the same.
Yeah.
But like, he was really cool, and I like that as a concept, even going into the mission. But what surprised me is that in the mission, it's not played as a joke. It's played very sincerely. And he's not... I thought he was going to be a chameleon, honestly, when I first saw the pictures. I thought that was going to be like a chameleon storyline. And I realized that the story wasn't really about, like oh, who's this guy? It starts like that. But what it is actually about is, like, this guy who genuinely just wants to make a difference. And he's inspired by Spider-Man. And it gives you this little hint, which I hope they expand on in like, the future games, of, like, how does Spider-Man affect people in like a
Yeah.
larger example? And this guy was such you spend so little time with him, but you really like come to like him. I don't know, I did. I don't know about you, but like I really came
No,
to
I
like
thought
how
he was
sincere he
very
was.
sweet.
Yeah, and he was just like, and like even the bit where you get attacked, and he's like, "No, I'm gonna help out," and he's like punching
Yeah.
them, and he doesn't do
He's,
much damage, but he does help.
he's like,
Like,
you take the guy, I'll take the guys with the guns. You take the other guy.
yeah, there's like a rocket at one point, and the guy's like, "Oh shit, I didn't realize the rocket
Yeah.
launchers." And then at the end, he's like, "Hey, okay, maybe I'm out of my depth, but I'm not gonna stop trying, in my own way to help." And him and Pete have like this really nice conversation. I thought it was going to end in like a Pete being like, "Don't do this again. This is awful. You're
Yeah.
crazy." But it actually ended in a, "Oh shit, I really like that this guy did this," and it'll be interesting. It's an interesting concept, even if we don't see him again, which we probably won't. Like, I like the idea that he's now gone off and his life has been improved by Spider-Man in the same way that Miles is. It's almost like a microcosm of Miles' story,
Yeah.
But like Miles' story plays out throughout the whole game, but this guy just has so much like exposition. So I think that was probably my favorite because of how sweet it was and how nice, and how like it actually ended up surprising me with how much depth they got into
Yeah.
in that storyline. But another one that had a big place in my heart. And again, it was because of the story, and this is my problem with a lot of the side missions. There's not a lot of this stuff, but these two missions did have it, and I really appreciated that. Was the pigeons, catching the
Oh,
pigeons for Harold. It was such a smart way of telling story, where you get like this shy dude who's very friendly with Spider-Man, but Spider-Man just being the talky guy, because when Pete puts on that mask, he just can't stop talking, can't stop talking, can't stop talking. And in this instance, he ran over himself with words. He got ahead of himself, and he's talking. He's like, "Oh, tell your wife that, like, it's gonna be fine. It's gonna, I'm gonna get all these pigeons. Tell her that it'll be fine." And the guy's like so shy. He's like, "Yeah, yeah, okay." And it
yeah,
isn't until
sure.
like a couple pigeons later that he's like, "Yeah, I just, I feel like I need to tell you, my wife, she died. She had cancer and she died." And it's just like it's such a sincere storyline, and it's like so nice because it's not just nice in the way that Harold is a nice character and that he has a sad backstory, but also I love the way that Pete, he almost got in his own way by doing the thing that usually helps him, like the way
Yeah.
he copes with problems, the way he copes with stress is actually the thing that made him get into this awkward situation. He couldn't stop talking, and he just made assumptions and stuff. So I like caught all those pigeons in one. I didn't do it like separately. Like I know a lot of people didn't get the full extent of that story because they did it all broken up, but I went out and I got every single one straight away, so I got to experience that story really fast and all cohesive and stuff, and I thought that really had a good impact on me. And it was the first, because I played it pretty early on into the game, it was the first time in the game where I felt like quite emotionally invested, not just like, "Oh, I'm enjoying this," but like, "Oh wow, this
Yeah.
actually is having an impact on me." So they were probably my two favorites. Were they yours as well, or do you have another one that
I
stands out?
enjoyed both of those. What I like about the pigeon story is that the game does a really good job of having like side missions and extra content that force you to get better at certain aspects of the game.
Oh yeah, 100%.
And then the thing is if you do those, then later on when you're chasing the
Oh
drones,
my god.
you're like, oh, this is like the pigeons. Okay, I know like how I should do this. It's great game design of like if you do the side missions, if you do the content the way
Mm,
that it's given to you, it helps you with the later parts of the game.
100%. And I felt like the game, it wasn't forcing you, but it was heavily implying, "Hey, you should do these side missions now,
Yeah,
like while you have them," because they would even have Peter being like, "Well, I may as well go out and do some Spider-Maning,"
yeah.
And it was almost like the game being like, "Hey, do side missions, dude." um,
And I loved, as much as I hate some of the challenges, I like this idea of Taskmaster being hired by somebody and just constantly messing with you,
he was
just
so.
randomly.
I loved it. I mean, he's got to be AIM, right? He's got to be
Yeah,
working for
that's what I
AIM.
think.
That's what I assumed anyway, because like it feels like they have that tie to Taskmaster anyway, and it would be an interesting company to like offer. I mean, it could be anyone, but like
Or
that.
yeah, I
That's
mean,
kind
it
of.
could be Roxxon because we see some Roxxon stuff in the
Oh, we
city.
do. I forgot about that. There's so much of that stuff like that.
Yeah,
Um, but I will agree with you that it does do a good job of teaching you, but nothing could have prepared me enough for those drones.
the drone missions were hard. Oh my gosh. All the Taskmaster challenges actually had some of them were fairly easy to get high scores on, but some of them were difficult.
Yeah, the stealth ones were probably my easiest. I found those the easiest because there were so many different ways to score high points. You know, you could do it
Yeah.
like really, really fast. You could do it without getting caught. You could do it with using lots of different gadgets. Um, the combat one was harder, but the more suit powers you unlocked, the easier it
Yeah,
became.
once you get like the majority of the suit powers, honestly, I used Web Blossom most of the time.
Is that the one where you web everyone up?
Yeah, and that's like one of the first ones you get. And I
Mm.
use that one for the majority of the game.
Yeah, friend of mine used the first one, the first ever one you get a lot
That
because he
one's
just
really
used
good.
it as a heal, you know. So you
Yeah.
just use it and then heal, 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 heal. The one I used the most for the majority of the game was the electric fists,
Mm.
because it would take out like lots. It would. My problem was like I would be concentrating on one guy, and then a guy would come up behind me, and I'd be like, oh, I don't know what to do now. Whereas the electric fists, when you punch the one guy, it's electrocuting everyone around him as well. But
Yeah.
then when I was doing the challenges, what I liked was the underpants suit, where it gives you one hit to
Oh yeah.
kill anyone,
One
but
hit
then
kill.
you get hit, you die as well if you, in one hit. So what I would do is at the beginning of the combat mission, I would activate it, hit as many people as I could, and then it would run out before they got to hit me. So then I would
Yeah,
just
I would
fight them
just
as
web zip,
normal.
web zip, web zip, web zip.
um, so yeah, I mean, asking people their favorite superpowers is also really fun as well. That was a really nice, diverse, part of the game.
I think the game was really smart in allowing you to customize the suits however you wanted.
Oh, 100%.
Instead
Like,
of you having to be like, I don't like this suit look that much, but I like the ability. It's like, no, you can do anything.
mm,
Anything with anything.
yeah, and just each person played this game as much as it's weird because it doesn't seem like. I mean, it's not an RPG, so you wouldn't
Yeah.
expect this from a single player game where there's no choices. A lot of people played this game very differently. Like I know a friend who spent most of his time in the air. Like even in combat, it was just air. Like everything was in the air. Pull people up to him, swing kick them. I know Jack Thomas specifically would only use gadgets, and then it would punch them after the gadgeted them all up. But every single person had to be in some sort of gadget contraption before you would even start fighting. Whereas I was more of like a like I wanted to see how many people I could like actually fight hand to hand before I started resorting to gadgets. I
Yeah.
was just wondering how like what was your kind of general style of fighting?
I'll say my general, like, I would just mostly like go in there, like, I just web zip the first guy, whatever, and then
Mm.
just web blossom. Like, that's the thing is, I would fight until I get my suit power, and then I would just shoot the webs everywhere, and then just take out the guys that I mostly have. But mostly, it was a lot of hit, 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 uppercut the shit out of you,
Oh, the uppercuts are
air,
so
air,
good.
air, zip to the guy across this way. It was a lot of just like waiting and dodging because I would
Dodging.
just dodge and web zip, and especially once you get the ability to insta knock out a guy who shoots a gun at you if you perfect
Yes.
dodge,
Yeah.
that oh that saved me so much time.
That was real good. I loved uh the dynamic of upgrading your strength to the point where you could
Yeah.
web people up and throw them around. And my favorite thing is when you would web up one of those giant dudes that would give you so much
Yeah.
hassle, and then swing them around, and then you have another ability. This is such a good because you like chain them, and you go, oh, that thing I love doing just became even more fun because you just unlocked another thing that adds to it. So I would swing the enemies around, and then I unlocked one whereas if you mash square, you would swing them for way, way longer.
Yeah.
So I would just web up the big fat kingpin looking guy, spin him, mash square, and basically just use him to knock pretty much all the enemies out, and then throw him. And then if you thwip him as you throw him, sometimes depending on how low his health got, the like normal generic Spider-Man like web would knock out because it would stick up to a wall, and they would be
Yeah.
stuck to that wall until you left. It was just
It's so
such a
sick.
cool
And I
dynamic.
oh, I loved when you get the ability to do multiple focus attacks in a row
Yes, yes,
on
yes,
weaker
yes,
level
yes.
enemies because I'd be like, knee to the face, turn, spin kick, go, throw the guy in the air and knock him down. It was like, oh, it was so smooth.
The best one of those was they had to be like close to you because it would run out so fast.
Yeah.
But what I figured was if you did it to one guy, right, and there was no one immediately next to you, if you jump into the air and do it, the range would be a lot longer because he would like
Yeah.
web into them. So a lot of them, I would like realize I had it, look at my health, be like, yeah, I could risk using the focus. I don't need it for my health right now. So I would do like my favorite one is when he runs at them full speed and punches them 3 times from like
Oh
all
yeah.
different directions. So I would do that and then jump into the air, I hit it again, and then a random guy I didn't even know was there, but I just got lucky. He would like thwip and like kick him, and I was like, "Ah, oh, damn, son, this is so good." There was one time where like when we were that day where we were both trophy hunting against each other.
Yeah.
That day, I like had such an insane fight with the Silver Sable people that I just had to like save it, because it's just like when like you're in the swing of a thing, swing, you're in like the swing of things, and like you're really getting it, and you're like, oh, I'm figuring all this out now. The combat's working perfectly. I'm dodging everything. It just felt so good. It like feels so
Yeah.
Spider-Man. And they really struck this interesting balance, which was definitely a choice, but on their behalf, the people like, people dislike, but I thought it was really good, where the combat feels like you need to get a hold of it. It's hard, but when you get it, you get it. Whereas
Yeah,
the
it took me,
swinging,
it was a learning curve.
yeah, and the swinging was the opposite. It was just like
Oh yeah.
instant. You
It
knew
feels
everything.
how you think it should feel.
Yeah, 100%. Were you the one who said that it feels how you remember Spider-Man 2 being?
Yeah, I saw that from
Yeah.
like Tim Geddes, I think, but
Okay,
still, the
that
fact
is
remains.
that is the most perfect, accurate. Like, wait, because I never want to go back. I want to remember that game as being amazing after I've played this. Because I'm like, I don't want to. Because I'm not going to be able to play it. It's going to be like, hey,
Yeah,
why can't I thwip to this very specific point?
it was so. And once you, because at first you're doing the swinging and you're like, okay, like I'm not really like I. Why would you use a web zip that much? And then you start really getting into it, and you're like,
Yeah,
oh,
dude.
I'm just web zipping and jumping and running up walls, and I would like be doing tight curves around buildings and launching myself into the air and then zwipping, zwipping somewhere.
It's insane, dude. It's like, and the way that you can traverse, I felt myself doing something and being like, I have no idea how I did that. Like
But it's
I would
cool as
launch
shit.
myself into the air and then move the controller sticks in a way that I knew specifically where I was going to land. And then after I did it, I was like, I don't know how I knew how to do that. The game has just taught me so well. Like I can just figure it out.
And it
Like,
doesn't feel like it's teaching you. That's the best thing.
yeah, 100%. You just do it because it's fun, and then you learn because
Yeah.
it's fun. You learn and you do it and you do it and you do it, and before you know it, it's like right now I'm trying to get the benchmarks because I'm insane, and like there's nothing else to do in the game, so I was like, well, may as well do the benchmarks, even though I've looked it up, they don't give you anything. So
Yeah.
it's like I'm just doing them because it's fun, and one of the benchmarks was like, like you need to wall run for a certain amount of time, and another one was you need to like thwip around corners. You know when you hold circle,
Yeah.
and he like zooms around the corner, and like without any like thought whatsoever, I just did it one round one building for constantly without even trying. Like it was just so easy to do, and then I thought about all the mechanics that went into sticking me to that building and keeping me there for such a long time, and I was like, this is tough, but it doesn't feel tough. Like it didn't feel
Yeah.
like I learned to do this. It's almost like when you really enjoy playing an instrument and you don't even realize that you're like getting better at it. You just keep playing it and playing it and playing it, and you're just like, wow, dude, I am Spider-Man now.
Yeah.
I have become.
How did you feel about the map and the amount of things there are to do?
Um. So the map is interesting because like, first of all, I want to say something I didn't like. I didn't like that they give us the option to fast travel.
Yeah.
I
I only used it when I was doing the platinum.
Yeah, same. I only used it then. I mean, even I only used it then because I found out that one of the trophies was to use it 5 times, which was
Yeah.
strange, but okay. Um, but I didn't like using it, even though I was tempted sometimes. Sometimes I was at the top of the map and I had to get to the bottom, and I was like, oh, I'll just fast travel. And then I was like, no, don't do that because you're not playing this game then. You're just waiting, and you could find something on your way. Like something
Yeah.
could pop up. And that's what I didn't like. I didn't like that they discouraged the thing that they did such a good job of encouraging, which was finding things. You know, just stumbling upon things as Spider-Man when you're on the way to the mission. So I didn't like that they give you the option to fast travel, and people could just say, "Well, don't use it." Like I didn't use it, so why am I complaining? It's like, yeah, but it was always there as a temptation, and it would have
Yeah.
swayed other players away from experiencing the game to the fullest extent. So I hope that doesn't come back, because as much as those cutscenes were funny when you're in the subway, like, or
Yeah.
even what I would argue is, I don't know if you ever figured out, but if you go down into one of the subways, you can actually fast travel that way.
Oh,
Yeah, so you can walk down into the subway and it'll just bring up the fast travel menu, and you can do that even before you've unlocked fast travel in the story. Like that's always available. That to me seems better because that way you actually physically have to find the subway station
yeah,
and go there. So you're still encouraging players to web swing around, but maybe put a couple subway stations, let people know where they are, and then you can use them so you can fast travel. It's still encouraging players to keep that swinging up and to learn how to swing. A lot of players who fast travel a lot won't know how to swing as well, I think, and it'll be
yeah,
harder to do the challenges down the line. Um, as far as what's in the world, um, it was strange because I I think that the game developers decided to make it more of a passively interesting world in that you can find things that are like, wow, this is cool, but there's no way to interact with it.
yeah,
But I kind of, towards the end, appreciated that because New York City in this game is less of a like a open world and more of like a playground, if you get what I'm
yeah,
saying. The city's designed for the web swinger. It's designed for that, to make it feel amazing and give you lots of opportunities to do cool things. Like Avengers Tower is cool that it's Avengers Tower. Like, wow, that's cool that they put that in the game. But what's cooler is that it's super tall and super easy to traverse. So you can do all these cool tricks off it and you can kind of
yeah,
always
exactly.
see it.
It's meant to be seen in passing.
Yes, exactly. And I think a lot of the game is there's a lot of shops that are like, oh, this is cool. I mean, one that everyone is kind of like lost their mind over, which I love, is Nelson and Murdoch, and the fact that
Yeah,
it has a closed sign and it's like oh, you have to get out to the building or something because it's like
yeah,
referencing how that relationship fell apart in the Netflix show, which I thought was fun. It has Alias, but they're all very passive. It has really awesome artwork throughout the city. There's two, like there's a pride flag and then there's also a pride memorial,
yeah.
painted on the wall, which I thought was awesome. Every major villain in the game appears as a piece of graffiti, which was also
Ah,
really
I
cool.
love the vulture one.
The Vulture one made me go, "Oh wow, Vulture's pretty."
Yeah.
Like, and then you see him in real life, and you're like, "Oh god." Um,
I loved how simple, like even though like the playground thing is very apt because it looks like a giant map, but when you're in it, you're like, oh man, I'm already out of upper
yeah,
West Side. I'm
yeah,
going to Hell's Kitchen right now. Like, and what I very much enjoyed was even though at first glance you're just doing the same thing over and over. You're like,
yeah.
oh man, I'm just doing the same crimes in just different skins, whatever. Man, I don't know. It just was so nice to open up that map and go, okay, I have four thug crimes in Hell's
Mm,
Kitchen. I'm just gonna swing around Hell's Kitchen until something pops up. It
one
was
hundred
just, it
percent.
felt like checking off things, but
It
in a
did.
way that didn't seem tedious.
No, and that's what I kept getting surprised by, that it wasn't tedious. And I think that the game is so pretty and so the city, like you said, it facilitates that. It knows that you're going to be swinging around, not really doing much. So it goes, I know what it's going to do. We're going to put a bunch of stuff in this city that is like, one, really fun to swing around, so that the act of swinging around looking for crimes is fun in of itself, and two, lots of opportunities to stop and take photos,
Well,
which is a
and then the
big
great
big deal.
thing is that it's also smart in how it populates these things. Because it's not, oh, hey, here's one crime, and then 3 seconds later, here's another crime.
Mm.
Like they're spaced out enough to where like you get into the swing of things. You start getting into a nice groove of swinging after you just finish one crime, and then it's like, oh, hey, by the way, here's another one.
Mm.
It's
And
not
you
just like, oh, I did that one, bam, look, here's another one.
Yeah, yeah. You're not going from one to one to one to one to one. It feels like you are Spider-Man. You're hanging out, on patrol, and then all of a sudden it's like, oh, I found something, I need to help, and then you move on. And I thought that it was such an interesting approach to an open world that fits Spider-Man really well. I do, however, want to see more of that villain story stuff in the sequel. I hoped,
Yeah,
because early on in the game I was like, there's none of it. There were early on in the game, there's backpacks, there's research stations, and we've talked about how much the research stations did actually end up having story, but it didn't feel like an actual story. It felt like
yeah. At
it,
first, you're just like, okay, this just seems like busy work.
yeah, and it isn't until the rest of the game happens that you realize how actually integral they are to the plot. You just think they're these extra things. I want more of the Taskmaster stuff.
Yeah,
When I
more
was,
Tombstone stuff too.
oh, the Tombstone stuff was great
Like
as
that
well.
idea. Ugh.
But like when I'm swinging around and I'm completely in my comfort zone and I'm yanked out of that and put into a boss battle I was not prepared for, that shit was amazing. Like that
Oh, it's
was
so cool.
so good because it was like not only am I in a battle right now that I was not prepared for. I was just enjoying myself, in the game, and I was on my way to a mission, or I'm not in the suit that I wanted. I've not got the powers equipped that I wanted, And then also, this guy is learning every time I use something,
Oh
so he's
yeah.
he's always got like a defense against me. And if you lose, you don't get to try again. He just leaves, and
Yeah.
he's like, "Oh, you lost, you suck," and he leaves. And you're like, well, now if I fight him, I've got to win because I'm not waiting until he catches me again. So then you're swinging around, always on edge, being like, when's the Taskmaster gonna come? And then the doubly amazingly great thing about this fight is you can fight him anywhere.
Yeah.
Literally anywhere. I one time was fighting him and I was like, I'm sick of this guy. I'm leaving. I'm sick of this. I left. He shot me down and we were all of a sudden in a park. I was like, what the hell's going on? And then you even if you beat him the first time, he still gets away. So even if you do beat him, like first time you beat him, you still got that fear in the back of your head, being like, when's he going to get me next? When's he
Yeah.
going to get me next? Which I thought was fantastic. I mean, the Spider-Man, like, the doppelganger Spider-Man, that was really good. I want to see more things like that. I want to see more side quests that feel like they have, a story within themselves. I mean, I keep going to Arkham City, which isn't quite fair because that was a sequel, There was a sequel, so they had time to build all this stuff up. But in Arkham City, there's a whole Mad Hatter side quest, which is insane. Like, you don't have to do it to play the game,
Yeah.
but if you do it, you get pulled down. I realize this is a pun. You get pulled down the rabbit hole. Um,
We've
and
just
like,
been doing that all day.
I mean, that's our brand. It's just
Yeah.
managing the brand. You get pulled down this rabbit hole. It's a whole story. There's another one in Arkham City with Hush, where you find
Yeah.
out about Hush. And there's another one. I mean, each one is like tied to a specific story and a specific part of the story. And there were times where I felt like the side missions were doing that, but there were also times where I was like, oh, okay, like I think I mentioned this to you, but like the backpacks were really fun, but I was hoping that there would be a conclusion. I was
Yeah.
hoping that there would be some kind of event that happened at the end, whether that's a flashback where we played young Peter, and then that's how we got the kid suit, or even an old foe from the past coming back. Now that they've done so well with this one, I would expect them to do that. But that's just the
Well,
only
and I
thing.
think one of the problems is that a lot of those villains that you would use for side quests and stuff
Mm,
were wrapped into the main story.
yeah, yeah,
Because like that whole Scorpion, like feeling poison, going to find the flower and all that stuff could have been its own side quest.
yeah, totally. I understand what
But
you're saying.
instead it was all wrapped into Otto's story.
Mm. Yeah, I again going back on the villains, I agree with you there. I wish that some of the other villains had gotten the
Yeah.
Scorpion treatment. I think Rhino totally got it. I thought the Rhino versus Miles was a really good setup. It really made you afraid of Rhino. Like it was like, oh shit, Rhino's actually scary when you haven't got
Well,
superpowers.
while like Electro and Vulture were just kind of like,
Yeah,
eh,
like and Electro was such a dynamic character in this game. He was so exciting and fun. But you barely got to see him. You barely got to experience like him by himself. Like there's that awesome bit where Spidey is like trying to reference Rocky to Vulture, and Vulture doesn't get it because he goes Adrian, and Vulture's
yeah,
like shut up, and then Spidey's like sad because he's like, oh, you don't get my references, and then Electro comes down, he's like, I will crush you, and then Spidey's almost like, hey, you get my reference. You're playing with me. I thought that was such a fun dynamic of Electro kind of being like the villain version of Spider-Man. He's just as childish, and he's
yeah,
almost enjoying doing these like little quips and references. Like the fact that he does the Ivan Drago voice and goes, I will crush you, is just so fucking crazy. I was like, I want to know more about this guy, but he's gone. He's completely gone
yeah,
straight away, and I was like, oh, okay. whereas like you said, Scorpion, he had like a a lead up to the fight. You know, he was like, oh, I'm getting to know Scorpion. He's actually doing something interesting. And Rhino was the same, and Rhino and Scorpion talking to each other is just limitlessly
Ah,
fun.
it's so
Like,
good.
just so good. But yeah, I thought that the open world was an interesting take. That it, like a lot of the game, it was like at first I didn't like it, but then I grew to understand what it was actually doing. And that was really good. I did want to ask you what was probably your favorite like sequency side quests. You know, like not doing the blue ones were like, you know, side quests. Like the blue ones were like, hey, this is a side quest. But like, you know, like the research stations, the backpacks, the crimes, the taskmaster challenges, um, you know, like the bases. Which of
Yeah.
those like did you find the easiest to do and the most fun to like kind of grind through?
The most fun to do might have been I really enjoyed the landmarks.
Oh, I didn't even think about that. Yeah.
I really enjoyed backpacks and photos were really fun for me because that is where you're learning how to traverse the city.
Mm.
That
Mm.
is where you're learning where different things are, and you're learning like, oh hey, this is where this cathedral is that I swing by all the time, or this is where
Yeah.
Avengers Tower is, or this is where Sanctum Sanctorum is, and just learning where those little nuggets of Marvel history are. And the backpacks are so much fun. But then
Yeah.
I really enjoyed the stuff in the lab,
Oh yeah.
the
I forgot
circuits
about
and
that.
the color thing, because it was just like a nice like, all right, let me just look at this thing and think about it and just have a break from all the action.
Mm. I liked that you. It was the one thing you did as Peter Parker.
Yeah,
Like you were actually Peter Parker in those moments. It was like, um, you know, there's not much. I mean, to talk about the Arkham games, there's much reason to make you Bruce Wayne. You know,
yeah.
Bruce Wayne doesn't have separate skills to, doesn't have separate skills to Batman. He's just Batman. Whereas Peter Parker, it felt like, oh shit, you know, this is Peter Parker being Peter Parker. He's doing science now. He's not being Spider Man anymore. He's being himself, and
And
it
then the
made
fact
you.
that doing those, you're basically creating what Otto
Mm.
needs the entire time.
Yeah, feeding
Like
back.
like at the end, just realizing that like you get to that point where you're like, oh, all the things I've been doing that I think are just side things are really just furthering his goal.
Oh my god, yeah, and it's so like you did it. You were the one who did this, and like
Yeah.
you're the one who
Like the
helped them
player is
create
the one
this.
who legitimately created the thing for Otto to do what he needs to do. And it's like, oh,
Because it doesn't feel as manipulative when it happens in like cutscenes. You know, like when
yeah,
when they fix the arm in the cutscene, it's like, oh yeah, I get that Peter is helping and that Peter is creating Doc Ock, but I've got no choice in it. But when
yeah.
you're so excited, you're like, oh, I'm giddy. I'm going to go to the lab. I'm going to excitedly do all these
I'm gonna get
puzzles.
some new tokens.
Yeah, and then you're like, oh shit, I actually actively was
Yeah,
excited about creating Dr. Octopus. And if I thought about it, I probably could have figured it out either as well.
yeah. But instead, you're just like, all right, whatever. Like, I'm just gonna keep on doing. Oh, that's a new interesting thing that I created. Whatever, who cares?
And like it makes you sympathize a lot more with Pete because you're like, no,
Yeah.
I fell for the same tricks as he
You're
did.
like, you're like, I understand how you feel. Like, I feel betrayed that all that work
Yeah.
I was putting into it is for something evil.
Man, it was mental. It was crazy. What? Okay, another thing. I know that obviously everyone's favorite. We didn't actually answer one of my questions way back at the beginning, but maybe we'll round off with that because that's about the end of the game. Other than the end mission, which is just fantastic, what were some of your favorite story missions then?
Oof. I'm trying to think because a lot of them kind of blur together.
Hmm.
But I really, I mean, we talked about a little bit earlier. The Miles stuff with Rhino
Yeah.
was so much fun. I really enjoyed mostly because of the story beat. Peter going into Martin Lee's lab.
Uh,
No, Martin Lee's office when he
yes.
was sneaking
Yeah.
into his
Yeah. Yeah.
office
Yeah.
because you get that story beat of him opening the door and Martin being there and Martin
Oh my
being like, "Did you
god.
find what you're looking for?" And it was just like,
Ooh.
oof, like he knows that I know, and it was just so tense, and it was just this great scene of just like, you'll be safe if you just don't go where you're not supposed to, and it's like,
He
oh,
he, and again, it goes back to the parallels. The story is just so good in this game.
Yeah,
That exact same situation happens with Doc Ock. Again,
yeah,
paralleling the two villains, but with Martin Lee, it's like, hey, I know you know, and I'm giving you an out here. Just give up. Just stop now, and it'll be fine. And I'm not going to do anything. And he didn't threaten anyone. He didn't even threaten Aunt May. He just
yeah,
says, hey, just stop. And the Doc Ock version of that is surprising him at the raft, even though he knows it's Peter,
yeah.
beating the shit out of him and being like, this is your only chance, and dropping him into the water. It's like the two villains very differently dealing with the
Well,
same
that's the thing is
situation.
that Martin Lee is transparent, which is ironic because of he's Mr. Negative and how he looks, but like he doesn't hide anything from Peter. He's just like, look, yeah, I'm the bad guy. I'm doing
Yeah.
this thing. You know it, I know it. Be careful, because I will fuck your shit up. While Otto the entire time is hiding behind this facade.
Yeah. Oh my god. Um, one of my favorite story missions, is Miles at the bombing,
Oh, that is a good one. That is
and
well, first of all, round of applause for the Jefferson Davis story, by the way.
I mean that was another one that
Introducing
I
him
thought was
early
so good.
on and then learning like, oh shit, that's Miles' dad. Ah, crap.
He's so, I mean, Officer Davis is just, he's great in everything. In every
Yeah,
incarnation. Comic books, I mean, he looks amazing in the cartoon movie. He looks so good in that. Um, but in this, he was really good. I mean, he's things he says just sound like they're coming out of Joe's mouth from Flash. Like
yeah,
the words of wisdom. Like when everyone's like, you're a hero. And he's like, no, I just did what I gotta do. You know? I did what you should do. Like I didn't do anything spectacular. He like literally saves Spider-Man's life, and it's
yeah,
such a good thing. But going back to the bombing, one of the things was amazing. Again, pointed out by someone else, so I have to give credit was credit's due. Like not my thing. Um, I'm not stealing this. One of the smartest decisions in that was knocking Peter out,
yeah,
and then not just knocking him out, but as Miles, you see him, and he's knocked out. He's gone. He's like he's not helping. Spider-Man is not here. You're reminded that Spider-Man's not here. It's and then also you remember, oh wait, I'm Miles Morales. I don't know who Peter Parker is. So I don't care that this guy is knocked out right now. I only
yeah,
care about my dad. So you can walk up to him and like be there, but there's no option to interact because why would
yeah.
there? And it's this really weird moment where you go, oh shit, I feel weird right now. I feel unnerved because I'm in someone's body and I'm looking at Peter and I'm looking at MJ, which are the two characters that I've controlled up until this point, and I'm not able to be them, and I'm not able to even care about them really. And now I'm in this guy's body, and then all of a sudden you're like, oh, I'm immediately in his shoes because I'm so confused and I'm so upset, and he's so confused and he's so upset, and we both loved Officer Davis because of what happened in the game. It's just such a good setup, and then the idea of Miles just like running in and like just being like, I don't care, I'm gonna run in, was just like, oh man, it made me feel
Well,
so
and then the
bad for
great
him.
thing is that the game, I think subconsciously is playing with your expectations of like, because there's a moment where I think everyone had to have had this moment where you look over at Peter and you're like, wait a minute, am I playing as Miles for the rest of the game?
Yeah, yeah, definitely.
Like you can't help yourself with having that. Like there's everyone like going into the game, most people know like Miles is gonna get spider powers, Miles
Yeah.
is a Spider-Man. But there's just that moment where you're like, they didn't do it, did they? Are they doing the thing? Did our blood somehow mix or transfuse or whatever when we're laying next to each other, knocked out? Like, did something
Mm.
happen?
I mean, my thought when I saw that Peter was like that, I thought maybe he's dead. Was like, oh, maybe Miles just already has it, but he just hasn't mentioned it yet. Maybe
Yeah,
he's already been bitten because that could have easily have been the case. That they haven't manifested, and then they manifest in this moment where he's like trying to save his dad, and he lifts a bit of scaffolding or something. But like, it was so sad, and he felt so powerless,
yeah,
and then even though there's no way that Officer Davis is still alive, there's still that moment where you're just like,
yeah.
maybe he's still alive, maybe he's okay, and then it's just like no. And what's crazy about that is this is the first time you see Martin Lee be the villain.
Yeah.
It's the first time you see it, and he's just like in like a cut, like a quick cut. You're like, oh shit, there he is, and then he's gone.
Yeah, they
It's
don't
like
linger on it. They just are just like, yep, that's Martin Lee. Okay, cool.
yeah, and it's like, oh wow. So that was a really good mission that I thought
Well, and
was.
this game does a really good job of raising the stakes to a boiling point because you get to that midsection,
Mm,
the bombing happens, and you're like, fuck, like things are going down.
mm.
And then it keeps going. And you get to the raft and you're like, oh, okay, no, we haven't hit the worst of it yet. This is the worst of it when the entire city turns into a war zone. Like you
Yeah.
have that
Ah.
scene, like you just pop up onto a building and you just see the smoke everywhere. And you're like, oh, I thought we were already at the worst of it at the bombing. No,
Yeah.
it's worse.
I loved your post where you were like, "Yeah, things are okay.
Yeah, things
Things
are
are
great.
fine."
Yeah, my Instagram turned into photo mode during the duration of this game.
I yeah, I mean that it was there were a lot of there were a couple of levels. I mean, another two that I got to give shout out to were the double boss fights. As much as I thought the characters were rushed, I think the actual double boss fights were really fun.
Yeah,
Like fighting them at the same time, having the interactions with Alexei and Gargan. It's just so good.
oh, it was so much fun. I
If
gotta
you
give a
ruin
shout.
this for me, Gargan.
I gotta give a shout out to the scenes where you were dealing with Peterson, the missions where you're dealing with Peterson.
Okay. Yeah.
Specifically, when you get evicted, because that
Oh yeah.
mission is just like you're swinging around the city, talking to the garbage truck dispatcher,
I forgot about that.
trying to find your shit.
Oh man, that guy was so nice. That guy
He's
was so
so nice.
kind.
And then just like realizing, just being like, all right, where am I gonna stay? Well, I can't stay here. I can't stay here. And
Mm.
it's just this great, like, you're just like, I feel like Peter Parker. I'm just swinging around the city looking for my stuff.
Yeah,
Like,
and
it was just a nice break.
he like stops at MJ's door and then
Yeah.
goes, "Nah, that's not a good idea." And I was like, "Thank God, thank Christ, I did not want to experience that awkwardness." um,
And then any scene with MJ and Peter
they were great. I
was
mean,
not missions, but they were just. And I actually, so this has been a very divisive topic with this game.
okay,
The MJ and Miles missions. Some people think they're tedious. I
it
felt like they
depends.
were a welcome break, except for as much story stuff as I loved in it. The one where you're sneaking through the Osborn mansion, oh, that one's rough because there are Sable guys around every fucking corner.
It that one was the thing with me is like it's all personal preference when it comes to that
Yeah,
stuff. I feel like there's rarely everyone who loves every single one and hates every single one. It's always
yeah,
kind of a variation of that. For me, it really depended on how much story I was getting.
yeah,
Um, the ones so like the Obscop one was fine with me because I'm like, okay, this is frustrating, but I have the taser at least, and also
yeah.
I'm
That
getting a
was nice.
lot of lore. Like I'm getting a lot of lore, which was really
The
good.
Tombstone one was just. I didn't enjoy that one because I didn't feel like I
That
was really getting a lot out of it.
Yeah, that felt a little silly. It felt like it was just teaching me how to use that new gadget.
Yeah,
That one I didn't like. I didn't like the Silver Sable one where you're sneaking into that camp because there was no story until the end, which could have just been a cutscene.
yeah, that one
Um,
was rough.
I didn't like the Miles one where he's just hacking because there was no
Yeah,
story to that either. I was just like, I almost was like, why is Miles in the game? Why am I playing Miles in this game? Not why is he in the game, but just why am I
yeah,
playing him? And then the Rhino one, I was like, oh, I get it now. Like the Rhino one was like, oh, I understand why Miles is in, why I
yeah.
play as
But they
Miles.
could have just showed us really with that mission. I think we would have been okay.
Yeah, it was almost like they didn't trust us to control Miles. They had to like
Yeah,
have an introductory mission, which was annoying. So yeah, there were a couple I didn't like, mainly when they were just non-law. They were just like, hey, let's do this because you've been Spider-Man for a little bit.
yeah,
Whereas the ones I really liked were like, this is interesting. Like the one where MJ and Peter team up was like
yeah.
fun because it was like one, I mean, we're actually getting to be partners. They talk about being partners for so long. This is them actually being partners.
And like
But
being able to be like, all right, Spider-Man, take that guy out. That was,
mm, yeah, and it felt like integral to that storyline of Peter trusting MJ more and more, and that was like almost the learning point for Spider-Man. Even though he doesn't say anything, you as playing as MJ, you go, oh shit, he's actually trusting me to like do all this stuff, which
yeah,
I thought was cool. And then it leads on to that scene where he's like, yeah, you can go to Osborn's, I don't give a shit, like as long as you're careful. Um, So those missions were off and on for me. I never really knew. Um, I
I
just
don't
think
think
that
that overall they I felt like they were still necessary, like to differentiate the game. I think if you had taken them all out and like I still enjoyed the ones that I enjoyed.
yeah, and I would really hate it if they took the Rhino one out. I would really
Yeah.
hate it if they took the bombing one out. Like
Yeah,
it,
or if they took the Oscorp one out, because I think that one
yes.
just makes the ending so much more impactful, knowing that you were right there.
Oh man. But and like so I agree with you. I wouldn't take them out. What I might have done is been like, let's come up with more interesting scenarios
Yeah.
for some of
Or
them.
maybe not so many.
Yeah, yeah, because that is the thing. Is like okay, I get the idea that you want to teach us how to do this before we get to the interesting levels, but they weren't that hard. Like you can figure them
Yeah.
out. The harder ones were the ones that I didn't like. Like the ones where I had the more trouble was Tombstone and
The Sable one.
the Sable one. Yeah, yeah. Those are the ones that I had the most trouble with, and they were the ones I didn't care about. So it was like
Yeah.
frustrating because it's like I'm struggling and I don't care.
I'm just like, all I'm doing is going to this cutscene that I already saw before.
Yeah. Um. Gosh, do you want to talk about anything else, or should we talk a bit more about the ending and then wrap it up?
Um, one question before the ending.
Okay.
For the platinum, because that's what we did get the platinum.
Yeah, we are platinum
For you,
boys.
what was the hardest trophy?
Oof, the
For
hardest
me,
trophy.
the ones that annoyed me the most were probably one of them, like this is a weird one to get annoyed by, but was unlocking all the suits.
Well, that wasn't so much the suits; it was more the challenges that
Well,
you
it
had
was
to
more
do.
so because I had to get more tokens because I was using them to get
Yeah.
because I there are only two suits that I didn't unlock because I legitimately didn't care for them. And then being like, ah, I gotta go do extra stuff to get them anyway. Because like some of those suits, I know they're comic accurate, but maybe don't put them in the game.
Secret Wars is the ugliest suit I've ever seen in my life.
So I was gonna ask you, what's your ugliest suit? Was that your least favorite?
Secret Wars, I thought I never liked it. I've
Yeah.
never liked it, but I also think that in the game it looks even worse because it's so high HD. It just looks
So
bad.
mine was the Fear itself suit.
Oh, that one sucked as well. I
That
mean,
one's
who cared
rough.
about Fear itself? Like,
And also, why would you look at that and go, we're gonna put that in the game?
yeah, like Red Skull's daughter is the villain in that or something. I don't know.
Yeah. I
Like,
do like the DLC suits that we're getting. The Scarlet Spider one.
I like the Scarlet Spider. I
The
think the Union
UK
Jack one looks a
Union
little bit
Jack one
silly.
looks, yeah.
I don't know what with the new one. That's like newly designed for the game,
Yeah,
isn't
I
it?
think that's a new design.
He looks like
Which
he's
that one looks,
made out of tin foil.
yeah. But I love this Scarlet Spider, the Kane Scarlet Spider one.
I mean,
Black and red. It's good.
Scarlet Spider has always had some of the coolest costumes. Like
Yeah.
he's just Ben Riley has had like he's been lucked out. You know, as unlucky as his life is in general,
Yeah.
he's had cool costumes. I also so yeah the Fear itself one I agree that one I didn't buy until the end as well
Yeah.
until I had to. The Secret Wars one sucked ass. I hated that one. Again, if you like it, I've nothing against you. I hate that giant blue spider. It's just so
Yeah.
un-Spider-Man. Like it looks like a Power Rangers logo. Um, and then another one I didn't like was the Black Cat one, just because I was a bit disappointed that was
Yeah,
really bad.
I enjoyed that one. I thought it was a little weird that she gave you just a black and red thing though.
Mm. It
It
was
didn't really
like
have any, it didn't look like a black cat.
at first I thought it was called the Black Suit, and I was like,
Yeah.
this isn't the Black Suit.
I was like, this looks more like a Black Widow suit than a.
Yeah, it was definitely strange. I don't know, but
But so besides that trophy, I think because a lot of the ones I accidentally just got, you know, but then there are the ones that were like oddly specific were annoying, like the trip mine one, because I didn't use the trip mines very often. So I was like, trip mine, 10 enemies, and I'm like, oh, okay, let me go and find a large cluster of bad guys or whatever, and like,
that was actually the one I got to get the platinum. That was the
uh,
last one I
that
actually
I
got.
think that was my second to last because my last one was the suits, but the
Mm.
one before that was the trip mines.
That one was fun because I was just playing the game at that point. I didn't know what I had to do because I only had like I'd gotten the trophies that showed me, and then it was just like the locked trophies, and
Yeah.
I didn't look them up. I was just playing the game, and I was like, "There's got to be something." So I'm just fighting enemies. I thought it was like beat more crimes. Honestly, I thought that was what I had to do, even though I'd done all the necessary ones. But they keep giving you them after the game's
Yeah.
ends. Um, so I'm doing these crimes and I'm just using different gadgets, and then I'm in my underwear, like I'm in underwear Spider-Man, just playing the game, and it's like, "Oh, you got platinum," and I'm like, "Oh, I guess I'll take a photo." So I'm just there in the alleyway in my underwear with trip mine guys everywhere. Um, yeah, the biggest one probably was had to be the the tokens, like to get the
Yeah.
suits. Those drone missions were insane. Like they were mental. The skill curve was like at the bottom you had the stealth. Then you had the combat missions, and then the bombs were pretty hard, but the
Yeah.
drones were just
See,
insane
I
because they were.
went and redid self missions and just did because most of them I think I'd gotten like 2 stars. So I went
Mm.
and just 3-starred those and got the rest of the tokens I needed.
What? I thought you needed every single one.
No, I didn't need every. No, you don't need it for the platinum.
Oh my god. Well, here
You
I
only
am.
need to get the second level on them.
I'm a dumbass because I got 3 stars on every single thing.
No, you only need to get spectacular or higher.
Well, oh, there you go. I got 3 stars because I thought I had to. So the hardest ones were the drones, like getting 3 stars on the drones. I guess it wasn't a
Yeah.
trophy. I thought it was, but but yeah, dude, it was insane. Like there was this one where you had to do, and the drone just felt like it went on forever and ever and
Yeah.
ever. And every time I replayed it, I was just like, I'm never gonna do this. I'm never gonna do this. And then I did it once, and I screamed. It was like the middle of the night, and I was like, yes. And I took a photo of me dancing over the drone's corpse. So yeah, I guess those were the hardest, even though I'm now discovering that I didn't need to do them.
Yeah, you only need to get. I think you only need to get spectacular or higher on one of those each type. I think.
I just didn't know how else to get the research tokens necessary to buy the suits.
Yeah.
But I
My
guess
thing
I
was I needed challenge tokens. I had a shit ton of all the other ones.
mm,
I just needed the specific challenge tokens, which was
mm,
annoying.
yeah. Oh man, it was tough. But
Yeah. So what was the last story thing you want to talk about?
I wanted to talk about a bit more of because we talked about Aunt May, but we kind of skipped over a little bit of the auto stuff. Because there were some lines that I really liked. One was, I mean, we talked about "You Knew," which is a great line where he's like, "You knew," but I don't know if you can tell I'm being quieter, but like I think that I realize that it's like 2 o'clock in the morning. There's someone who lives above me. Anyway,
Yeah.
so there's a line in it which is just really good when you're fighting him on the side of the building, and he's like you're fighting him and you're like dodging the punches, but clearly like Peter is like struggling,
Yeah.
and Dr. Octavius, whenever he calls you Mr. Parker, it's like really cutting because it's like, you're my friend, you don't call me Mr.
Yeah.
Parker. But he goes, feeling tired, Mr. Parker? And Peter, just with no like emotion whatsoever, he goes, no, not tired, just hurt. And I was like,
Yeah.
oh, like that was
That
so
one was rough.
fucking bad. And then the cutscene when Otto is like lying on the arms, and the
Oh
arms are like
yeah.
unmoving, and he's like pleading with you. He's like pleading. He's like, no, they'll take my arms away. And then Parker's like, I'm not going to help you. I'm not. I don't trust you anymore. And then he turns. He goes back to his old evil self, and he's like, well, wouldn't it be? Wouldn't you like it if your secret was safe with me? And then, oh, Pete just is the best. He turns around and he goes, just do what you think is right, Doc. That's all
Oh
any of
yeah.
us can do, even if it hurts. And I was like, oh, like my heart
That was a
was
good
just
one.
like, it just killed. And then, like, he says, do what you think is right. That's all we can do, even if it hurts. And then immediately he has to go and sacrifice Aunt May. It's
Yeah.
like such a setup. It kills me, man. But yeah, that's the Doc Ock, completely everything I said about him on the last podcast, complaining about how obvious he was. It didn't matter. None of that mattered. It didn't matter how obvious he was. They completely blew it out of the water. It's probably, it goes back and forth, but him and the Raimi Doc Ock, he might beat out the Raimi Doc Ock, even
I
though I
think
love that
well, because
actor.
we get more time.
We do
That's the
get
thing.
more
We
time.
get more time with him. And
Yeah.
also he doesn't like the thing about Raimi Doc that makes it so sad is that he's truly sympathetic where it's like, no, he
Mm.
legitimately was going crazy because of this neuroinhibitor.
Yeah.
This Doc Ock was like, no, he's a bad guy.
Yeah.
He's a bad person. Legitimately, he's a facade. He's just this fake man created to enact this revenge scheme because he was left out of a business.
Mm.
He is
It's
a
almost.
petty, petulant little man, and it's like, it just hurts so much because you have this, young, impressionable Peter Parker who legitimately finds more happiness and fulfillment working for Otto than he does as Spider-Man.
Yeah.
And to have that ripped away from him.
Oh man, it sucks so bad. It's almost fun because like, Goblin was always kind of Spider-Man's Joker.
Yeah.
Like he was always compared to the Joker. But I feel like this version of Doc Ock fits the Joker more because it's that idea of just pure evil. No like redeeming backstory. No like, hey, this is why he's evil. Just evil and just the worst. Like just the worst. And even though he doesn't act like him, I think it's almost more symbolically accurate than just, oh yeah, the Goblin laughs and so does the Joker.
Yeah.
It's like, it's just at the core they're quite similar in the sense of like, how do you
Well,
fight
and
that?
he's the antithesis of everything that Peter's about, because
Yeah.
Peter's about truth and honesty and caring about the little guy and caring for people.
Mm,
While this Otto he's literally fake.
yeah.
He's literally a lie wrapped up in this evil scheme and to throw anyone and everyone under the bus that doesn't, give him what he wants.
Oh man, it's crazy. But overall, fantastic game. It was
Amazing.
brilliant. It completely redeemed itself. I thought I was like I I was like such a cynic about it when I was first playing it, but it completely pulls it around. I really hope they make some more improvements in the second one, but that's not to say that the first one wasn't fucking great. If I hadn't have played God of War this year, I would say this is my game of the year. But I think there's just I can't explain God of War. That's a whole
Yeah.
other podcast. But this
For
this is
me,
definitely.
I'm not the type of person who platinums a game.
Oh yeah, yeah,
I'm not the type of person who goes out and looks at the trophy list and goes, "What else do I need to do?
yeah.
What else do I need to do?" It's one of those things where, for the same person who's talking on another podcast about how open world games give me anxiety and stuff,
Yeah.
this game doesn't,
No.
because everything just is so perfectly laid out, and the story is so good and so fulfilling. Um, I cried, you know,
Mm.
laughed. It just it's what I want from video games.
I I think I'll leave it with this. This has been my final thoughts because I think this shows how much the game affected me. I played the last scene. Obviously, the auto stuff was killing me, but I didn't have a physical reaction. I was just completely engrossed in the story. But then the Aunt May stuff happens, right? And she says, "Take off the mask. I want to see the face of my nephew." And he takes it off, and he's got these bruises everywhere. Like they really did a good job to make his face look like he's gone through hell. And he's crying. And then she's like, "I've known for a while." And she's like, "You know what you have to do." And then he goes and he pulls the thing, the UV, and he's like almost about to put the cure in there. Do you know the scene I'm talking about? Like when
Yeah,
he's holding
yeah, I
it there.
do. I remember that scene specifically because he like grabs it and it's almost touching.
Yeah, and he's like holding his own hand back, and I burst into tears. I was just everything built up, and I just felt so bad for him, and I was crying, right? And I'm playing the game with my headphones on, not just because I want to keep the noise down, like I'm trying to do right now, but also because I like the sound that it gives in the headphones
Yeah,
is a bit better. So I'm playing the game with the headphones on, and I just start bawling like a baby, like in a way that I don't cry a lot. I cry a lot at a lot of things, but like this way I don't cry a lot. Like in a way that I'm the one who's there. Like so I'm
yes.
crying, and the scene finishes, and then the credits play, and I just take my headphones off for a second just to because the crowd's playing. I'm just taking a second, take my headphones off, and I hear the like the back end of a cam. Are you like cam? And I'm like, what the hell? And then I realize Jenny's calling me, so I walk in, and she's like, I walk into the bedroom because she was sleeping. I walk in and I'm like, what's up? She's like, are you okay? What's up? Are you alright? Is everything okay? Did you get some bad news or something? I'm like, oh yeah, Aunt May just died. And she goes, you fucking what? I thought you were dying. Like, she was like, you were crying so hard.
My Aunt May just died.
She was like, I've seen you cry at a lot of things, but you cried so hard at this. I thought it was something serious. Like, apparently I was like, but like
Oi, chief.
that kind of summarizes how killer this game was. Also, spoilers for Spider-Man.
Oh my God. This video is going to be called Spider-Man Spoiler Cast.
So that was my final thoughts. I want to know if you want to say one final thing before we send him off.
I said this before. It's one of my favorite Spider-Man stories of all time.
Mm.
Uh, I think it does something truly, truly special. Not to be hyperbolic or whatever, but it really does. The fights, the everything comes together in a perfect package to create the perfect superhero universe where legitimately, like, the things that I care about with superheroes are all shown on display. They are kind, they they fight for the little guy, they try their best. Sometimes they don't succeed, but that's not the point. The point is that they always get up.
Yeah.
And with so many superhero stories out there that just miss the mark on what makes these characters special, this game hits it straight square on the head about what makes Spider-Man special and
Yeah.
what makes him such an endearing and everlasting character that I forgot why Spider-Man was relatable. I forgot why Spider-Man has endured for all this long time, because all these movies, like, I liked Homecoming, I like all these stuff, but I forgot why I used to love this character.
Yeah.
And this game reminded me, like, oh fuck, this is why I love Spider-Man.
Yeah.
Like, this is it.
It goes back to that scene, like where he's underneath the debris, back in the Stan Lee
Yeah.
comics. This game, like you said, rekindled, just completely rekindled. It's so good. John, thank you so much. Thank you so much for joining me here and allowing us to talk about Spider-Man for far too long.
For 5 hours.
This is very fun. I hope people enjoyed this special episode. I hope that you didn't click on it thinking that it was going to be spoiler free.
If you haven't played it by now, what are you doing with your life?
I mean, yeah, borrowed off Jack Thomas.
Yeah, he's got enough copies.
John, I shall talk to you in a bit, and maybe we'll cover some more broad topics, and maybe we'll talk about Titans. I don't know. I don't know how I'm going to watch that. Have you watched it yet? Have you found out to
No,
watch it?
I did not purchase the streaming service.
Yeah, well, it's not available in my country, so I'm gonna have to wait
Is
till
it supposed to be on
Netflix.
Netflix? Okay, yeah, so it's showing
Yeah,
up.
it's gonna show up when the whole series is done.
Ooh, yeah.
But I wonder if I can watch it a different way. Anyway, thanks for listening to Wi-Fi Friends podcast. You can follow John and me on Twitter. The links are in the bio. Yeah, look at our galleries. Look at our Twitter beef where we pictured each other to death about Spider-Man. And here's to us becoming Platinum Boys Round 2 when they release the update.
Platinum Boys.